one of the main things on your platform is this insurance mess that we find ourselves in Florida. If you win this office, what's your strategy for fixing that?
So there's a lot of things we can do. Florida's been in this property insurance crisis. We've seen it coming down the pike for over 5 years. The current CFO is not even interested in having a conversation on how to fix it. Florida, as we've just seen this past week, and I saw when I was hunkered down at my house, gets hit by hurricanes. But so do other states in the United States. But we're the only ones in this major property insurance crisis. Only about 9% of the property insurance claims in the United States originate in Florida. But over 76% of the property insurance litigation is in Florida. Mm-hmm. There's obviously a flaw with our regulation and our legislation that allows this to happen. It's all legal. We have to take a hard look, not just at what we do, but what other states do to be successful, and start incorporating that into our legal code to make sure it's beneficial for both insurance companies, and so we can also protect consumers at the same time. Other states can do it. We've just been listed as the worst state in the entire country when it comes to property insurance. We have to do something different, but the current CFO has squandered every opportunity over the past half decade to even look at solving this problem.
This is a powerful voice in Tallahassee with lobbyists, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Any of the cabinet positions, it's one of the highest positions in the entire state. Department of Financial Services employs over 4,000 people across Florida. It's the state treasurer, the head of the Office of Insurance Regulation, on the State Board of Administration for the Public Pension Fund, the Clemency Board. It's extraordinarily powerful, as well as being the state auditor. So if you really do want to know what's been going on with your tax dollars, then we need to have a new person who's ready to dig into those numbers.
There's going to be a lot of voices in your ear.
Yeah, there will be. And I spent 2 years in the Florida legislature, so I have some experience dealing with lobbyists and having those voices in my ear. But when it comes down to it, as long as you're honest with not just lobbyists, but other lawmakers, which I have a very good reputation in Tallahassee for integrity and being honest, they like to know where they stand. I've had plenty of conversations with lobbyists where I tell them, I'm sorry, I can't support the bill that you want me to, and they take that, okay, they know where I stand with them. They appreciate that because they have a yes or a no. That's all they're looking for. They've made their argument, and then they know where I stand, and they know that the door is open to always talk to me.
This could be a little bit tricky because you are a Democrat, and if you win, you might be the only Democrat in a Republican cabinet, Republican administration, and he is a staunch Republican. He is not known for reaching across the party aisle. What's your strategy for working with him and his camp?
Well, there's a few things. Like I said, I've already spent some time in Tallahassee, so I know most of the players up there. And secondly, as I mentioned, the CFO is also the state auditor. We get to really dig into what every single state funded department has done with your tax dollars. And we also have, the CFO's office also has a small division of the Department of Law Enforcement, of FDLE. So we can hold people accountable to any kind of wrongdoings. The CFO role, it's supposed to be there for checks and balances. And with the House and the Senate and the Governor's Mansion and the Attorney General all being Republican for 20 years, we need somebody for those checks and balances. We need someone to hold them accountable. So by being the state auditor and being able to dig into those numbers, there's a little bit more teeth in what the CFO says and gets to do. There's a little bit more power there than there are with some of the other cabinet positions. So they'll be forced to work with us.
I see your point. Your pitch is kind of like, I'm the spotter, so you don't want a party man. You want someone from the other camp because it's my job to scrutinize what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's part of American politics. It's checks and balances. It's built into our political system. I've even said this before. If the entire state House was Democrat, if the entire state Senate was Democrat, if the governor and the Attorney General are all Democrats, I would want a Republican as the CFO for those checks and balances to hold them accountable. But for 20 years, we've had a state House Republican, state Senate Republican, a governor Republican, an Attorney General Republican. We're missing out on those checks and balances. The people of Florida deserve a Democrat as their CFO to keep watch over their interests and their tax dollars to protect them and make sure government stays fair and balanced.
Will you talk to me about some of the legislation that you were involved in when you were in Tallahassee? Maybe what we were most proud of there.
So there were a few bills I was pretty proud of. One was for mental health and suicide prevention for veterans. Another was to help developmentally disabled children. And a third was to help veterans get through college and university faster and more efficiently here in Florida so they're able to get into the workforce faster. But here's the thing. Since there's a D next to my name, every single one of those bills were killed. We had to go around the system to find health care for a specific 5-year-old developmentally disabled child. His family had two choices: let him die or move out of the state of Florida. And we had to go around the system to find him the care that he needed. These bills were ready for a vote on the House floor, but there is a D next to my name. And in Tallahassee, it doesn't matter how good the idea is or how good the legislation is or how good the policy is. It's how well you're sucked up to leadership and to the Republican speaker. 0 bills died on the House floor in the 2 years I was in Tallahassee. They specifically pick bills they know that are gonna pass. It's theater. We need checks and balances. We need something new in Tallahassee to actually represent the people. I ended up giving those bills away to a Republican legislator the following year, and the Veterans Higher Education Bill is now law. But you won't find that in a lot of politicians. I didn't care to have my name on the bill. I didn't need the credit. If it's good policy, I'm more than happy to give it away to make sure it gets passed.
What I'm hearing from you is the deck is stacked. It can be.
It absolutely is stacked. Right now there's 78 Republicans and only 42 Democrats in the state House, and Florida is almost balanced when it comes to voter registration. There was a special legislative session to gerrymander the congressional districts in a state in 2018 that the U.S. Senate seat was decided by 10,033 votes out of nearly 8.5 million cast. That's barely a hair width. Now, congressionally, is a state 20-8 Republican. That's not fair and balanced. That does not reflect the state of Florida.
What do you predict happens in this next election cycle with Chris and DeSantis?
This is going to be a tough one, but I have to focus on my race.
Yep.
This is the most winnable of all the statewide races. Ask your neighbors. Nobody knows who the chief financial officer is. There's a poll by the Democratic Governors Association that shows that he has by far the lowest name ID of anyone in the state at under 7%. And when you incorporate the message of what's been going on with insurance, property insurance, specifically in Florida, this race needs to be about your money. It needs to be about your wallet. Let's take politics out of your money. Florida is the worst state in the country for property insurance. We've been listed as the least affordable state out of the entire country. Obviously, they have been failing to properly supervise and invest your money and take care of your money. We need to start voting with our wallets. Don't vote with your party on this race. Don't vote with your heart. It's time to vote with your wallets.
What is the mechanism for preventing insurance companies for dropping people right before storm season comes? I got a love note from my insurance company right before the start of storm season. You're on your own.
So did I. I got dropped in June from my insurance company. Over 500,000 people in Florida since the start of this year have been dropped. We've had 6 insurance companies go insolvent or leave the state, and around 20 others are having their ratings reduced. That's half of the property insurance companies in Florida.
So how can we prohibit that? How can we tell them you can't do this?
Well, there's only so much you can do when it comes to messing with over-regulation, you know what I mean? What we need to do is fix the legislative environment in which they operate.
Okay.
So the current CFO and the Office of Insurance Regulation have given the insurance companies everything they've wanted for so long. It's like if you let a kid out in a candy shop, just let them eat everything they want. After a while, they get sick. Our current insurance industry has gotten everything they've wanted for so long, they've become sick. We haven't had anybody protecting you, anybody protecting the consumer. So we need to change our mindset. We need to get people, most respected people from insurance companies, from consumer protection, from insurance law, people with decades of insurance experience, to not just look at what we're doing, but look at what other states are doing and completely reform how we operate for property insurance here in Florida. What we are doing is obviously not working based on these past stats and these numbers and being the worst market in the country and companies leaving the state. We've seen the average insurance premium in Florida double in the past 3 years. And as of right now, the average property insurance premium in Florida is 3 times the national average. We are obviously doing something wrong. and the current CFO won't even have the conversation on how to fix it.
But help me understand this. You are not running to be a lawmaker. This is not a position that legislates. So how can you take a lead role in these reforms that you're talking about when this role doesn't give you the authority to introduce law?
Through the Office of Insurance Regulation, by regulation, not necessarily legislation,
Yep.
we can make some of these reforms. Additionally, the governor's not a legislator, but he works with legislators to craft bills that go through the process and become law. And if you look across the board, all the cabinet members do that. Like, for example, in the 2019 legislative session, Nikki Fried worked with a Republican lawmaker out of Citrus County on House Bill 333 for the state hemp industry after medical marijuana and the hemp industry was allowed in Florida. That was a Republican legislator working with a Democratic member of the cabinet to get a law passed to help every Floridian. So it happens every single legislative session.